Okay, so I want you to picture something. You're in the grocery store, right? And you walk down that aisle,
Oh, I know the one.
the greeting card aisle,
Mm-hmm.
specifically, the new baby section.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just stand there, you are basically drowning in this very specific kind of propaganda.
The propaganda of soft focus photography.
Exactly. It is relentless. All these pastel colors, sleeping babies, and words like overflowing joy and endless bliss.
Right, pure warmth.
It frames parental love as this like golden light that just turns on and stays on.
Right.
The implication is you have the baby, you get the warmth. It's a package deal.
Yeah, it's almost sold as a transaction. You provide the child, and biology just rewards you with this permanent emotional high.
And here's the problem with that. If you are a parent and it's, say, the early hours of the morning and you have not slept, and you are,
Mm.
well, you're covered in fluids that are not yours,
Mm.
and you don't feel that golden warmth. You feel broken. You feel like a fraud.
Which is such a tragedy, because it means we're judging ourselves against a fantasy.
That is exactly why we are doing this deep dive. We are taking a big step away from the greeting card version of love.
Good.
We're digging into a standalone essay called Simply Love by the writer and philosopher Pedro Mala. And I have to say, reading this, it felt like someone finally opened a window in a really stuffy room.
It's a remarkable piece of work because he's not interested in the Hallmark version. He's doing something strictly philosophical.
Right.
He's arguing that we've fundamentally miscategorized what love even is. We keep calling it an emotion, but he says that's just a category error.
He says it's not a feeling at all. He calls it a structural change to reality.
Which is a huge claim, but he backs it up. His whole premise is that we need to stop looking for constant warmth.
And start recognizing constant orientation. I think I circled that phrase 5 times.
It's a great phrase.
Because orientation is so mechanical. It's a navigational word. It's not fuzzy.
Not at all. And that's his point. Think about feelings, right? Happiness, anger, affection. They're like weather. They blow in, they blow out.
They change based on whether you've had lunch.
Exactly. So if parental love were just a feeling, it would vanish the second you got exhausted or angry.
Which, let's be honest, is a lot of the time. If it depended on me feeling warm and fuzzy, I'd fall out of love 3 times before breakfast.
Precisely. Mala argues love is more like a chronic condition. It arrives, and then it just stays. It persists no matter your mood, your energy, your certainty.
It's a baseline.
Yes.
He has this one analogy that I found so helpful. He describes love as a field.
Like a magnetic field or a gravitational field.
Yes. And that's a great visual because a field is just there.
Yeah.
Gravity doesn't care if you're tired. It doesn't stop pulling because you're annoyed. It just is.
And because it's a field, it can hold contradictory emotions all at the same time without breaking.
Okay, this was the part that was so validating for me. He lists these pairings. He says the field holds fear without panic, care without ease, and responsibility without choice.
That last one is heavy. Responsibility without choice.
But the one that just stopped me in my tracks was tenderness without rest.
Tenderness without rest.
It's that exact state. It's
Okay.
late at night, you're rocking a child, you're being incredibly tender. Your voice is soft, your hands are gentle.
But you're completely depleted.
Your body is screaming.
Yeah.
You are basically a loving zombie.
Right. And in the greeting card version, that exhaustion is a flaw. But Mala says no. The exhaustion and the tenderness are happening in the same field. Love is the container for both.
And he's clear this isn't always pleasant. He says it's often heavy. But he uses this word, precise.
Yeah.
He says love is precise. It knows where attention has to go even when you really don't want it to.
This is like a compass. Your north is just this other person now. You can be mad at north. You can be bored with north.
But you're still pointing north.
The needle doesn't spin. The physics are constant.
Okay, so love is this orientation, this gravity. But then he takes it another step. He says it doesn't just change the person. It changes time itself.
This is where it gets really philosophically interesting. He has this phrase, arrival through arrival.
Which is a little dense. Arrival through arrival.
Mm.
I had to read that a couple times. What's he really getting at there?
He's saying it's different from other life changes. You know, you decide to take a job, you decide to move. But with a child, the orientation arrives simply because the child arrives.
It's not a choice you make. It's an event that happens to you.
Exactly. It's an external event that just rewires your internal clock. He says the day itself changes structure.
Right. It's no longer just a series of hours. He calls them containers of watchfulness, repetition, and anticipation.
Containers of watchfulness, that feels so real. It's that background process that's always running in your brain, just scanning.
Scanning for danger, scanning for needs. And he says it even extends into the night. Nights are held open by listening.
Oh, absolutely. Even when the house is totally silent. You wake up in the dark and you're already listening before you're even fully awake.
That's the field. It doesn't sleep.
And this, he says, is what stretches the present forward.
What does he mean by that? Stretching the present.
Well, normally the future is abstract. It's someday. But when you're responsible for another person's future, tomorrow is constantly pressing into today.
So you're always anticipating the next need, the next risk.
Yeah.
You're never fully in the moment.
It's relentless, and it sounds exhausting because it is exhausting. You are never off the clock.
And that leads to maybe the hardest part of the essay, the asymmetry of it all.
Yes. The lack of mutuality.
Because in every other relationship, we expect a return on investment.
A mutual exchange, yeah.
But he points out that parental love, by its very nature, can't depend on that. It doesn't wait for a return.
It has to operate in a vacuum, especially in those early years.
Yeah.
It remains active even when it's unseen, unappreciated, or taken for granted.
Which is most of the time. I mean, a kid isn't going to say, hey, thanks for maintaining a low-level vigilance about my safety for the last decade.
No, they absolutely do not. And they can't. And that makes the love incredibly resilient. But it also makes it, in his words, vulnerable to invisibility.
Vulnerable to invisibility. That really stuck with me. Because the better you are at it,
The less visible it is.
exactly. If the field is working perfectly, the child just feels safe and completely ignores it.
And he talks about the mechanism of attention, how love is just attention returning to the same needs over and over. He writes, silence can feel loud because love is still listening.
But to everyone else, that attention is just wallpaper. It's just there.
It becomes the baseline. And he warns us, ordinary does not mean light. Just because it's background noise doesn't mean it isn't heavy.
He also mentions memory. How parents become these archivists of, like, totally useless data.
The museum of obsolete information.
Yes. You remember the name of a stuffed animal they lost 3 years ago? You remember they used to be scared of loud noises? Your brain is just hoarding data, just in case.
And that's a huge expenditure of cognitive energy that looks like nothing. But Malha is saying that's the substance of the love, not the big heroic moments.
This all brings us to the big conflict he talks about. The conflict between this messy reality and the language we have for it. He basically says our public language is broken.
It's completely insufficient. We use words like devotion, sacrifice, and those are noble words, but they're too clean.
They sound like something you'd carve on a statue.
Right. The lived experience is gritty. He says love contains irritation. It contains boredom, resentment, doubt.
Oh, the boredom part is huge. We do not talk about how boring it can be.
It's a total taboo, but he puts it right out there. And here's the crucial insight. He says those negative feelings do not cancel the love.
Right. We think I'm resentful, so I must be a bad parent.
And he says no, absolutely not. Those feelings sit inside the larger structure of love. The love is the container that holds the boredom. The orientation hasn't wavered an inch.
He says love can feel like pressure rather than pleasure, or weight rather than warmth.
And that weight isn't a flaw. It's just physics. If you carry something heavy, you feel weight. It doesn't mean you don't love the thing you're carrying.
It changes how you think about patience, too.
It redefines it completely. He calls it active endurance. Not that calm, zen-like state.
Right, not inner peace.
Forget inner peace. He says parental patience is tolerating unfinished conversations, waiting without certainty. It's muscular. It's work.
And speaking of work and not being calm, we have to talk about fear. You can't really discuss this essay without talking about the terror.
No, you can't. He has a whole section on how love changes your relationship to danger. The world itself feels sharper.
He uses the phrase embodied alarm.
Embodied alarm, a constant low-level vigilance. The switch is never fully off. And news stories, they cut closer. You hear about a tragedy and you feel it in your body.
And what I found so profound was how he says this rewrites your own history. You look back at your own childhood differently.
It's recalibration, not nostalgia. You see your own parents differently. You suddenly realize the terror they must have been carrying for you.
It really does make you want to call your parents and apologize for everything.
It does. The child becomes the reference point for your past and your future.
So you have this orientation, this weight, this fear, but then the kid grows up. And Malha writes about how the orientation has to shift.
This is the section on letting go. But he frames it as love moving from hands-on to distributed.
Distributed love. It sounds a bit corporate, but the way he describes it is, yeah, it's heartbreaking.
It is. It's love expanding across space, learning to operate without being close by. And he admits it feels like loss. It feels like a demotion.
You go from being the CEO of their reality to, like, an occasional consultant.
But he argues that this is actually a more advanced form of the field. He talks about restraint as an action.
Choosing not to intervene.
Choosing not to speak, choosing not to fix it. And that is active trust. But it goes against every single instinct you've spent years building.
It's brutal. And there's a darker note in this section, too. A quiet grief he doesn't ignore.
No, he faces it. He says parental love includes the awareness that the child will probably outlive you. That's the goal, of course.
Right.
But it means part of the love is preparing for your own absence. You are loving someone into a future you will not get to see.
That's heavy.
And that grief gives the love its depth, its urgency.
It really shows this isn't a parenting essay. It's about the human condition.
Precisely. Which leads to his final point about ordinary heroism. Not dramatic movie heroism.
No swelling music.
No, it's routine. He uses these beautiful, grounded visuals, folding clothes with another body in mind.
Listening for a door opening late at night.
Carrying a future silently while you're discussing something trivial, like what to have for dinner.
And none of those acts feel significant. They just feel like chores.
Invisible. But their significance accumulates over thousands of small acts of attention. And his solution, if you can call it that, is just to stop trying to make love feel good all the time.
Stop demanding the hallmark moment.
Exactly. When we see it as a long-term condition, we stop asking, am I happy? And we can just understand, I am oriented. And we can carry that weight without apology.
You know, it's strange. Reading about all this heaviness and exhaustion and fear, it actually made me feel lighter.
Because validation is relief. He's just naming what's real. And when you stop fighting the weight, you can actually just carry it.
So to bring this all home, we've talked about love as orientation, as asymmetrical as this act of endurance. If there's one thing to take away from Malha's work, what is it?
I think the biggest takeaway is this. Parental love isn't best understood by how it feels. It's understood by how it holds.
How it holds.
It holds the child, the future, the risk, and it holds the parent, too. It's a structure. He ends by saying it's heavier than often admitted and more stable than often feared.
More stable than often feared. I like that.
It offers continuity, not ease, which is a profound gift.
It really is. It definitely makes me look at those greeting cards a little differently now. They just seem thin.
They lack gravity.
Which actually leads us to a really interesting question to leave everyone with. Mala makes this powerful case for parental love being an orientation, not a feeling.
Right.
So it makes you wonder, what other relationships in our lives are we misjudging because we're waiting for the wrong emotion to show up?
That's a good question.
You know, are there parts of our lives, our friendships, our work that are actually these powerful orientations, but we think they're failing just because they don't give us that constant sunny warmth?
Maybe we're richer than we think if we just change the definition of wealth.
I love that. Constant orientation. Something to think about. Thanks for joining us in the deep end.
Talk to you next time.